listening is probably more important than your delivery for a lot of people, especially in our business, because we're used to being in the driver's seat. We tell people how things are going to be done, what's going to happen next, what somebody's thinking, where things are going. But sometimes we don't always stop and really listen to what they're needing.
And sometimes you assume you know what they're going to say. Like you're already finishing their sentences before they finish.
Your mother-in-law.
Yeah, my mother-in-law. I love my mother-in-law.
And my mother-in-law.
And she does that, though. She'll before you're finished, because she just thinks fast and she talks fast and her mind's going. So she thinks she knows what you're going to, and oftentimes, to her credit, she's spot on. But then there's many times that John, my father-in-law goes, okay, now, are you going to tell the story? Or are you going to let me tell the story? Because I'm going a different route with this than you are. And so she has to stop herself and slow down. But I think that's a big thing is don't assume you know what someone else is thinking, even though they're kind of tracking that. It may not end up that way.
I used to be really bad about that. And I'm still like that with my friends. I think I'm okay in work. I'll listen all day long, but I grew up in a house with 5 sisters.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
We talk over each other and we are having 3 conversations at the same time. Yeah. And whenever sometimes I'm in a meeting and people are just like going on and on, I'm like, we got to get this moving. Like I like it a little bit quicker, but I've become a very good listener.
Yeah.
It is amazing though, how much if you let someone talk, especially your customers, if you let them talk, how much you can draw out of them, how much you can learn about them. And the more we know about them and we know maybe what their past experiences are or how they're feeling about something or just little nuances in their life, when you're really listening to that, you can serve them better. We become better with what we do when we really fully understand how they feel in things.
Yep.
When I think in negotiations, that's my best strategy is just listen. Sit back, let the other side talk, and they usually talk themselves either into or out of whatever they were trying to get. Mm-hmm. I remember working in the oil field. I was working with a company up in Utah, and it was more of a cultural thing, but the first person to talk usually lost. So I got really good at just sitting there and
staring at each
other, and but that's a form of communication too, and listening can be a superpower, in some instances. And I think listening to all sides of, everybody in the room, like, especially if you have divorced couples or if you have, a large family and everybody has input, you have to listen to everybody's input and then try to figure out what happens. And I think, you listen to the self-help books or tapes, they always talk about active listening. And they never really talk about the next step is what do you do with all that active listening? I think making the plan or coming up with a good strategy is the next part.
Yeah, and you have to be okay, especially in negotiations with like a long, awkward silence. And especially in that scenario, I could just picture you and another oil and gas guy staring across the table at each other like, this is weird. Like, who's going to talk first? It's not going to
be me.
Yeah.
I don't have to win, but I'm not losing.
One of my closest friends, we started hanging out like 13 years ago, and we went to lunch, and we didn't know each other at all. And we both just were kind of okay with being silent. I don't mind a silence, and apparently she didn't either. And my husband was like, well, what'd you guys talk about? I'm like, not much. He's like, no, but like you were there for an hour. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. We didn't chat much. And then we were like, we'd just kind of be around each other. Like we'd go get pedicures together or we'd watch a movie and we just kind of be together. And then one day she had came over and got real tipsy at my house and chatterbox. And Bryson was like, where did this come from? Because she was just so quiet for so many years.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bryson's the chatterbox in your family, isn't he?
Bryson just likes to say things to see what sticks. He just I think he kind of just like likes the wow factor. He's like, he just thinks he's funny and he's joking all the time, but you can't tell he's joking. Well, I can tell he's joking.
Sure.
But people are like, is he serious? I'm like, no. Yeah. He's not being serious. And he's just over there giggling. But Bryson's a very good communicator.
Yeah.
And he never shies away from a hard or uncomfortable conversation, which is nice.
That is a nice thing because those are inevitable, hard and uncomfortable conversations, and you have to be able to have those and move through them. So, we're winding down, but we want to get to the speed round. Shannon, boss, coming to you. What is the most important aspect of communication and why?
I don't know. There's so many important things. I would say listening is probably the most important. You can learn everything that you need to know if you really truly listen to someone.
That's a great answer. My father-in-law says, Mary Elizabeth, they gave you 2 of these and 1 of these for a reason. And he always has to remind her, but she fires back. She's always hammering him too. Aspen.
I was going to say listening is probably the most important, just because that's where you can find out if you weren't communicating clearly, like if they understood it differently, or where they're coming from, or their side, or how they felt, or whatever it might be. I think listening is where you find the clarity in the conversation.
Yep, well said. Paul Berry, you got the rock.
Listening. I was trying to think of something different, but I think we talked so long about the other stuff. Listening is definitely the most important.
Yeah, it's funny because that kind of came at the end of the conversation, but it is probably the most important thing. I'm going to round it out myself. I mean, what were you going to say something?
Well, I was just thinking of a phrase that came out in that leadership training I had is seek to understand. So it comes in with listening, but listen to, understand what the other side is doing, not just listening to make sure that you've heard everything, but, understand what the other side is trying to get.
Not listening to respond.
Yes. Yeah. Listening to understand.
Yeah. That actually takes some work because your initial response is, I'm going to respond. I'm listening to respond, but you're seeking to understand. When you're in that mode, then you're really truly trying to understand what that person is saying. They may be heated, they may be soft-spoken, doesn't matter. What are they truly trying to say? And that's an important part of communication. So I would agree. I think all 4 of us on the same page, the number one skill you need to have and develop as a good communicator is the ability to listen and seek to understand what the person you're communicating with is saying so you can respond appropriately. Then you can go down to list number 2, 3, 4 things of priority, not shouting and stomping your feet and all that. But fascinating discussion. I think it would help people out in their lives in general to really hone in the art of communication. And then also specifically in real estate, if you're a realtor or a client, a buyer or a seller, communication is key. You always want to make sure you're on the same page with who you're working with, because that can help get you to the next step and not get you into a muddy mess, which we find ourselves in sometimes. So thank you for the great discussion, partners. And thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. If you like our content, please like and subscribe. And of course, you can go to sjcbroker.com and schedule a private consultation with any one of the team members here, any one of the partners here. We'd love to sit down with you and give you the insight in today's market and help you get an advantage whether you're buying or selling.